Okay, that recording stopped, so we're going to pick back up, go to New File from Sublime Text. We're going to create the CSS file. Go ahead and save this, even though it's blank. Call it style.css. We're going to save that in the same folder that the index file is in. So website, there we go. So when you look at it on your computer, it should be right next to them, style.css index. There you go. So this is going to be where we make stuff look good. And so we can make these things look different. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set, let's say this body. We need to tell the body how to be aligned. So we're going to type in body, and how CSS works is it usually works by declaring a class like this. Usually where classes are distinguished by periods, so we're going to be doing that. But since body is not a class we've created, but an actual tag in HTML, all we need to do is type body. And then we're going to type a bracket, curly brackets, and the code that we want is going to go in between here. So body, and we're going to say width. Notice it's going to auto-populate some stuff. We're going to say 100%. And we're going to go height. You wouldn't actually probably have to do this, but we're going to anyhow. 100%. We're going to go to margin, type in auto. And now, save that, and watch. We can refresh this, and nothing's going to change. Let's put a background picture in. Background, image. Now we need to tell it where that background image is. So like we did with the index, it's under images and then background. So we need to type in, now it handles it differently in CSS. We have to go URL, and it automatically knows what we're wanting, so we'll type that in there. And then we're going to type images background.jpg. Okay, so now we just told it to have a background image. So let's check it out. Let's save it and refresh this. Nothing happens. You know why? It's because this has no idea that this exists. None. So we have to tell it, hey, look at this file. So what we got to do here is before the body, actually we may want to put a header in here. Let's see here. Let me find. We have to link it to that, so I'm checking this out. Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and create another tag in here called head. And so then we're going to put our style sheets within here. So we've got head before body and after the HTML. So then we're going to type in, tab over to help distinguish, link, and go ahead and just hit enter, and it's going to auto-populate that stuff. REL equals style sheet, type equals text CSS, href. Now this is where we have to tell it where it is. So we're just going to type, because it's in the same folder, just type style.css. And that's right here, style.css. So that is where it will be looking. So let's try it now. Whoa. Okay, see now it knows what to look for. Okay, now this is telling it go find this image. And so put that image as the background. So now it knows. So let's take a look at this. Now see how when I stretch it, it repeats? Well, we don't actually want it to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go background image, or no, background repeat, none. Okay, now watch, I'll save that, refresh this, And this may be getting where it'll be tricky, because I've made that change, but it may not know that I've made that change. So this might take a little bit of work to get going. Let's test it. Well, that knows that. Well, we'll deal with that later. We also want to create another thing. Now, image is, again, a already existing HTML element. So we just want to say width 100%. So that will apply to all image tags. And now you can see how this guy wants to take up the whole screen, because I told him all images should take 100% of the screen. So it's wanting to do that. Well, we'll change that around because we don't want him to do that. Now it's not doing it to my background like I want it to. So we're gonna have to play with that to get it. So let's get this background working like we want it first. So let me go look at another project I did. Sometimes I forget, and I have to go check. Okay, so I'm going to look at the source here. You can do this for websites, it's pretty nice. So I'm looking here. Let me just pull up in the style sheet perhaps. Image max width equals 100%. So let's go back here and let's type, instead of width, let's type max width. Well, we may have to change that. Because it's not scaling for the browser. Well, if we have to come back and fix that, we can fix that. Alright, so let's look at this again. We've got this box that we need to create. So let's go ahead and create this box. So we got to call that class by typing a period and then the name. Alright, box, and get those curly brackets. Now, what do we want this box to be like? Well, we want it to be, well, let's go into our Photoshop document and see. I'm going to grab my selection tool and drag this, and it tells me how wide it is. 737. Okay, so we'll go 740. So go back to my Sublime Text. I want the width to be 740 pixels. Okay, how tall do I want it? Height? Let's go look at this again. It's 630, so let's go 640 pixels. Okay, and let's give it a color. Background color is black. Now you can type in a name like that, then take some of those, or often we have to use hex codes. Alright, so black. Now let's save that. Let's go back to this and refresh. There it is. So it's got a black box. Now it's not in the right position, but it is a black box nonetheless. Okay, so let's go back to here. We need to get that black box centered. So let's go margin, auto. Now it stays centered. Watch. See, now as I move that, it stays centered. Okay, well, we don't want it actually from the top, right up at the top. We want to give it some space. How much space do we want? About 100 pixels. So let's go and give it margin, top, 100 pixels. Now refresh this, and look, it shoves it down. So now we have a box that stays 100 pixels from the top and stays in the center. Okay, that's good. And notice how all the text scoots along with it. That's because in the HTML, all of this is within the box. So therefore, it inherits it and moves along with it. So we got our box. Now there's a couple other things. We want the opacity to be, now opacity is the transparency. And remember here, you can see through it, and we have it at 40%. So let's set it to 0.4. Save. Let's refresh this. Now look at that. You can see through it. Now you can also see that it made my other images transparent too. And that's because they inherit that. Well, we'll take care of that. There's a couple different ways we could do that, but we'll leave it like it is for now. Okay. Now the other thing is we need rounded corners, and thankfully with CSS we can do rounded corners in code now. Let me just look at it. Look it up real quick. Border radius. There we go. So we're going to want to type in border radius, and let's give it 10 pixels. Save that. Refresh. See now how they got rounded corners? Increase that number, and they get more rounded. Okay, so now we have that box. Now we got to get the text and everything positioned in there. Now we can't see the text because of that opacity deal. So we need to change this. We don't want to apply that opacity to everything within that box. Well, one thing we could do is we could set this to a color, and color black is #000000, and that's going to be the same color as black. Okay, get rid of this opacity, and what we can do is use RGBA. We can declare that this is RGBA, which RGB, if you remember, is red, green, blue, and that's how it's a color, how colors are formed with light waves. RGBA is with a transparency. A stands for alpha. I'm going to look this up real quick, how we're supposed to do. Alright, so what we can do is background color and then type RGBA. And then within there, we can type zero, comma, let me delete this other stuff. 0, 0, 0. So those are the three numbers. And then transparency, 0.4. Let's see if that works. Whoa, not at all. Well, I forgot a parenthesis. That might have something to do with it. There it goes. So now we have just the transparency applied to the box, the RGBA. Now some browsers may not support that. We're not going to worry about that right now. If you're using Chrome, Firefox, or Safari, you should be good. So there's the box. Now we need to position all the text within it. That background image still needs work. Oh well, we'll have to deal with that. So now we need to position these elements within that. So let's go look. We've got an anchor with an image. We've got a wombatish, and because wombats are cool, and that's on the top. So let's define our top and our bottom. Let's go top bracket. Let's go width 100%. We want to take up the whole box. So we want the width to be 100%. Height. We don't want it to be 100% for the height. We only want it to be about 215 pixels. to 15 pixels. Save that. Let's just see what happens. Alright, you can see how some of that stuff is shoved up there. It's still looking like a mess, but that is okay. So we've got H1, H2, and A, and we need to arrange those. So we're going to tie a class to this. We're going to call class equals avatar. Then we're going to define that avatar, curly bracket. We're going to say float left. Boom. And that means it'll float left and yeah. Let's see here. I think we also may want to give it some padding. We're going to give it padding left, and we're going to give it let's look at here. Padding, how much padding do we have? I feel like we had this arranged differently. We'll give it about 75 pixels. Alright, let's just see what this looks like. Okay, now you can see how this stuff jumped up here. We see this getting 75 pixels. Oh, it's getting more than that, so I'm not sure what's going on there. We'll have to take a look. Alright, so let's actually go ahead and create our bottom too. Bottom, curly brackets. Width is 100%. Height equals, let's check this out, almost 420, so we'll just go 415 pixels. And what else do we need to know? Well, we'll just leave it at that for now. Let's refresh this. Okay, nothing really changed. Alright, so now let's go take care of our headers. Now headers are already existing in HTML, so we don't have to use a period. Just type H1, and now we can set the font. We're going to go font family, and we're going to say Helvetica, and then comma Arial, comma sans serif. Okay. Now let's refresh this and see how this changed. That H1 is now Helvetica. If it can't find Helvetica, and after Helvetica it'll search for Arial. After Arial it'll go to sans serif. Oops, I messed that up. And sans serif is just any font, any generic sans serif font. Okay, so let's define H2. Curly brackets, font family, and type in the same thing. We can actually just copy and paste this. Save yourself some time. Alright? Alrighty. So we're going to do H3. Paste. Same thing. Now we need to do P, which is our paragraph text, curly bracket. And we actually want this, though, to font weight to be normal. So we don't want it to be very heavy. Alright, look at that. So now the only text that isn't looking kind of right is the click me. We will take care of that later. We need to tell these to be white, so we can go color and we can type white, and you'll see here it'll change. Or we could go color, pound FFF, and that is also the color white. And so we'll just throw this stuff in. And so those should all be white. Okay, so it's looking more and more like it. Not quite there. Let's see let's get the font sizes right before we position them. 64. So let's say H1 should be font size 64 pixels. Now look how much bigger that is. Okay, H2, let's go see what H2 is. 32, 24, 16. So H2 font size is 32 pixels. H3 is 24. And paragraph is 16. Alright, let's see how this looks. Alright, see, now we got things about the right size. So it's coming along. Let's see, now we need to position these things. Why is that floating so much? Let's see. I think we're going to need to add some extra HTML here to define some of the placement of these things. Let's go ahead and create that button though. If you recall, we called that button class button. So all we have to do is define a class and call it dot button. And now we can give it color and height. So let's give it width. And we'll just make it 150 pixels wide. Height, we'll make it 44 pixels tall, which is the standard height for a button on iPhone. I know this isn't an iPhone, but nonetheless we're going to use that. Height, now let's do background color. We're going to say, what color did we use? Now this is where you can see the gray. So go ahead and click on your rectangle, which is your button. See that? Double click the color. See this little thing? This is that hex number. So it's D2, D2, D2. So copy that and come back to Sublime and type in pound and then paste that and put your colon, save it, and let's go take a look. Okay, so now you can see that it has that gray background. Now it's not like we want it yet. That's okay. We'll get it there. Alright, so let's say we want border radius, and we want it to have 5 pixel radius. Okay, and let's put some padding on there. Padding left is going to be 25 pixels. Padding right, 25 pixels. Let's see how that looks. See, the padding puts that extra stuff on it. So put padding top, 10 pixels. Padding bottom, 10 pixels. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, it's looking more like a button. Okay, so let's put color. Now this will define the font color. Let's just type black. Now that turned black. And let's say, see how it has that underline on it? We want to get rid of that. So text decoration, none. See, there it goes. Now we can also define its font. Font family. Now we can paste this from up here. There we go. It's looking more like it. Font size. How big is it? This one. Okay. Now the button's not getting. Oops. The button's not getting as big as I wanted it to. So let's see how we can fix that. Well, we could add more padding. I'm curious why the width and the height being taken. We should. Like I thought they should. Let's take a look. Well, while I look at this, you can stare at that screen and maybe type some of that stuff off and listen to the vacuum.